Welcome to the Global Rising Summit. Stand up, speak out, be seen. I'm Janine Savient, and with my co-host Heather Ellis Drake. Today we have Pat Armitstead. Welcome to you, Pat.
Thank you so much. Delight to be with you both.
So Pat is going to share with us today highlights from her life journey, demonstrating as we go the paradox and synchronicity and the way in which her life purpose has been and continues to be fulfilled. Pat is truly a Renaissance woman with an extensive skill set and huge creativity. Yet she says she has struggled with doubt all her life. Her journey has been a roller coaster, with the last 16 years especially being filled with spiritual growth and evolution. So Pat, what called you to become the world's first joyologist? Fantastic descriptive name for you, joyologist.
Thank you. Back in 2001, I had, over the previous 4 years, experienced a whole range of losses. I lost my home and lost my business twice, relocated to New Zealand. I'd had cancer. My family hadn't been speaking since 1989. And the first 18 months that I was in New Zealand, I had 10 car accidents. Now, honestly, ladies, they were not my fault. And at the end of that, my partner of 20 years left with another woman. And, I experienced I was shattered by that. I thought we'd grow old and crotchety in a rest home. And I plummeted. And my doctor wanted to prescribe for me. And I said to her, I don't want to take medication. Help me deal with my grief. And so two things happened from that point. Number one, I went to a grieving seminar at Starship Hospital and sat next to a couple who changed my life. Their son had died as a result of a fall in the IMAX cinema in Auckland. And a year had passed, and the husband was still, and they both were, dealing with a lot of grief. And he shared with me at the end of the program. And then about 2 hours later, I had a phone call with a magician in South Australia. And it was in that phone call with him, we'd been laughing our heads off, which was kind of anathema to the space I'd been occupying, some hours before. There were 400 parents in that room who'd lost children. And so here I am laughing with this magician, and then there was just this lull in the conversation. And in that lull, I just got a message, and the message was, oh my God, we've got radiology, pathology, hematology, but no joyology. I'm going to be a joyologist. And so the journey began. For 2 weeks, I had no idea how that was going to come together. I was like a chook with its head cut off, just spinning in circles, saying, come on, you've got to give me a bit more information than that. But that's where the journey began. And from that time right through to now, because I committed in that time, whatever comes up now, I'm going to go to it. Then I just have experienced so much paradox and synchronicity side by side, challenge and support. And sometimes it can be minutes apart. So there's this incredible journey and lots of puns and lots of metaphor emerging as a result of being able to see always these two opposing aspects.
Yes. So because you say in your bio that you've struggled with doubt all your life. So on the one hand, knowing you for the last 18 months that I have seen the joy in you. I've seen the very quick wit that comes out, very clever wit that comes out, and I've seen the doubt as well. So if life is a reflection of all that we are, of course you would have this paradox that's going on. Great awareness, Pat, really great awareness.
Yeah.
So how have you used humour and laughter to overcome your own and others' obstacles?
Well, I think for myself, I have a natural innate capacity to be good-humoured.
Yes.
There is something witty about me, and I can usually access that. But a story I love to share is even before I was aware, at the age of 16 years and 10 months, I was in the Clifford Green ward at Fairfield District Hospital. This was back in 1970. And I was on my way to bed bath my first male patient. His name was Bob Hall. And at that time, Bob had been in hospital somewhere between 2 and 3 months. He had come into casualty previous, and he'd been involved in a construction accident, and a huge construction crane had fallen on him, and he'd literally been flattened. So when he arrived in casualty, the team were around the bed and pretty much saying, "It's not going to make it." However, 4 hours later, Bob was still alive, and at that point they thought, well, you know, maybe we do need to take him to theatre, but we're a bit scared of that because there's every possibility he would die on the table. So Bob did go to theatre, and he didn't die on the table. And as they were trolling him back to the recovery ward, the conversation shifted again. And they said, well, poor beggar, he'll probably be a vegetable. Bob woke up in recovery and revealed very quickly he was not a vegetable. And at that point, the conversation changed again, and they said, well, he'll never walk again. He had 35 broken bones. Bob Hall was in hospital the whole 3 years of my general nurse training. I saw Bob Hall every day that I was on duty, whether I was rostered on his ward or not. And he walked on 2 sticks to my graduation ceremony and stood up the back of the room. And when the ceremony proper was done, he waved one of those sticks and said, "I've got something I'd like to say," and started to come forward. And I'm getting a bit nervous by now because my mother's sitting in the front row and I have an idea on what Bob might be going to reveal. And he came forward and he had this big scroll. It was about 3 feet long. And he peeled open and he just started reading off this scroll all the dreadful tricks and pranks and the terrible things that I did to him over that 3-year period. And every now and again, my poor mother would gasp and say, "Oh, Trishy, get it." He knew nothing of this. And at the end, he turned to me and he said, "You don't know what you did." And I never really got that until 2001. Never really got it. I got it on one level, but it became very, very apparent to me the gift I was given, and how I'd been using it unconsciously, subconsciously, all those intervening years. And then this last 16 or 17 years, the very conscious and deliberate application of that, and you know, a deeper combination now of my spirituality within that, and being able to wrap the two and meld the two without losing anything from one or the other.
So it's widely known now, isn't it, the power of joy, the power of laughter, and what it does for healing.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
So really, sorry, go on, please.
I was going to say, there have been many studies, and I mean, why would we need to research it? However, it's probably no accident that Dr. Madan Kataria in 1995, I think it was, started laughter yoga, which is the fun you're having when you're not really having fun. And you know, now there are thousands of laughter clubs around the world, and you know, it just speaks of where humanity is at the moment, that this has needed to occur.
Absolutely. So really, you could also say, as well as being a joyologist, you're a healer. because that's what you're doing with people. Yes.
Yeah.
So moving along from that, what do you think about depression, and what part does humour and laughter make in this area?
Depression's always concerned me, and since 2001 I have some opinions about it, and they're not based on any fact other than my own observations of the people that I've worked and dealt with personally, and that's since my nursing years. I think so much of what we call depression is actually sadness, and sadness is love announced. And is reflecting that which people are not finding in their lives. So there's this gaping hole, and it's not being filled by the material world, and so many people are finding difficulty being able to go within and fulfill themselves in that fashion either.
I believe that from my own knowing of life, that life is all about love, and it either reflects back to us love itself or the lack of love itself. So, very similar to what you've just said.
There's I'll share with you by email, and any of the listeners could have it as well. You might not have heard of it, but there is actually now a clown chakra.
clown chakra. Dare we ask where that's situated?
It's situated between the heart and the throat chakra.
The clown chakra.
It's a long explanation, but in essence, when you look at what makes us ill, ILL actually stands for I lack love.
Clever.
Yeah.
Wow. That's beautiful. That's a beautiful sharing. Thank you. Something to ponder on, isn't it, Heather? I can see you pondering right at the moment.
Yes, I am. I was just, so it's between where, Pat? Between our heart and
the heart and the throat chakra.
Heart and the throat, yes.
Yeah.
So
because
just
that's where
right.
Yeah, I can feel the laughter coming from there.
Yes, yeah. The clown chakra. That's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. So you say you've got a vision for people to become fully self-expressed. What does that mean?
In 2001, I made many discoveries, and one was finding the man Professor Howard Gardner, who created a theory some 30 years before that we don't just have one intelligence, in fact we have many, and he developed a theorem around that. So in this life, as you and I know it, we value sport and we value academia, but we don't value things like interpersonal development, intrapersonal development, as we're engaging here, spiritual development, emotional intelligence. All these other intelligences don't get anywhere near the attention that those other two do. And I loved what he had to say. And I did a pilot in a rest home, building an activity program based on those intelligences. And I believe we created the most extensive and varied activities program with over 50 different things they could do each day, which fed into those intelligences. And people could choose where they would go based on their desire and interest and like, as opposed to we've got carpet bowls this afternoon and a bus ride this morning and how's he tomorrow? Really giving them a deeper experience of something for many of them they've never explored before.
Wow, that's fantastic. I mean, if they brought that more into schools, imagine the growth in children, just allowing them to move right into self-expression in whatever form, within boundaries, I guess, with the young ones. But imagine that. I know there is alternative schools out there now that do that a lot more.
Yeah.
Instead of turning out the little soldiers that we were all turned out as,
Yeah. The Montessori schools are brilliant at creating that world and letting children grow naturally through through their experience of what it is that they're drawn to.
Wow, yes, it's fantastic. That's fantastic. So, Pat, I was just having a look at your website before we came online together, and I'd just like to read out some of your attainments, if you like, and I found a little about you, of course, on there. So you're a keynote speaker, you're a facilitator, a coach, an author, and a TV host. The world's first joyologist, a master storyteller, best-selling author of 2 books and co-author of another 6. You've produced 10 documentaries and anchored your own multi-award-winning radio show. And you were a registered nurse for 16 years on top, behind, I wouldn't say on top of all that, but behind that, because that came first. So you have led an incredibly busy and multi-layered life, haven't you?
Yes. And the something that I when I reflect that I love is there's been great investment of study. Looking at my doubting self, it was never enough. So, 17 certificates later, there was still that. But yes, I've jumped many, many times. And when I left nursing, the whole creative world unfolded to me. I always wanted to be an artist, but at 16 years and 10 months, Mum said, no, I think you should get a proper job. Your father always frames everything that you paint. And so I ended up nursing, which I'd had no inkling to do. I ended up loving it, of course. And, now I've got this, I had that grounding for the development of my compassionate self, and then toured Australia for 5 years on a working holiday, did many things, including working on the set of the television show, and the listeners who are a bit older would know it, the Flying Doctors.
Wow. I used to love that program.
So yeah, I did continuity and special effects makeup. And then by default got into advertising. So started to express my creative self in so many different ways. And that's continued through to now, where there's this opportunity as a joyologist to express this fully expressed person that I've become, and be a model for that in a time when, a lot of cautioning comes from the exterior world to say, well, you've got your finger in too many pies and you've got too many projects happening, and it would be better if you just, focused, and perhaps I would. But I wouldn't be having the, there's a level of freedom, even though it creates constraints sometimes because it tends to peak and trough, but there's an incredible level of freedom in that. And that's what I've loved.
Yes. And speaking of your creative side, behind you I see 2 pieces on the wall, which in a moment I'll ask you if you can share with the viewers what they're about, because they're very, very unique. But I was watching a YouTube clip of yours not so long ago, and I saw that YouTube clip of the lady in the red dress that steps out of the picture. And that is absolutely fabulous. If it's not too long a story, would you like to share that with the viewers? Because, and I would encourage them to go onto YouTube and have a look at the clip too. So, yeah.
The piece about the canvas was called Lady in Red, subtitle, Esteem Dances Within. And this was my stepping out into my artist self in the early 2000s. We built the Estuary Art Centre, raised $450,000, bought an old KFC building for $1 off council, and oversaw its change or transformation into a gallery of pristine function, which continues to work now. So I was invited to do the opening piece and was terrified, but I painted the big canvas, 6 foot by 4, of a lady in a stylized red dress, and then I had a model whom I body painted so she disappeared into the canvas. And when the piece was revealed, her job was to stay perfectly still for 10 seconds as the music, Lady in Red, started to play, and then to slowly peel herself off the canvas.
Wow.
And this was me. She was me, stepping away from that old self and stepping out and making this declaration. And as I anticipated, there were just gasps within the audience as she did that. So, and I love that kind of work. I love the illusion.
Yes.
But I also love the story.
Yes, absolutely. So, yes, viewers, I'd encourage you to go on and put Pat's name in and put Lady in Red up and have a look at that, because it's a fascinating video clip to see. So, can you just quickly share with us what the creation behind you on the wall of the black with the arms is? That's intrigued me since we come on today.
That's a tribute to my mother. A lot of my work now, I use plaster casting of body parts to be that expression. So it's not my mother's real arms, but a representation. And there's a monarch butterfly there, and it looks pretty plain from the outside. The necklace is, my dad gave that to her for her 21st birthday. And you can't see it in the image that's there, but there's a stylized ghostly shadow that's on the canvas, not evident for you in the view. And the main significance of the piece is when you look inside the arms, they're decoupaged with beautiful flowers and scenery from the garden. So for me, that epitomises my mother, who wore, an A-line skirt and a twin set, and was a girl guide leader, and yet, so she was, kind of very conservative, and yet inside was this beautiful, kind, generous and caring, but not necessarily outwardly expressive person.
Yes, I actually get that feeling by looking at that too. That's beautifully done, Pat. So you mentioned body casting with that particular piece, which takes me on to, I'm fascinated to know about the body casting that you do in context to healing people. Can you explain a bit about that?
Yes. Back in 2004, excuse me, I met 2 and 3 other Jungian psychotherapists, and we worked together for a year, sharing myths, legends, fairy tales, stories from the past, colour, symbolism, and sacred occasions. And we met each month, and we cast each other just using anything that came up at the time. It was about us exploring, casting our bodies wherever things were happening, and then making meaning and art of the end sculptured piece. So at the end of that 12-month period, I came up with the idea of running a good grief program using the casting process, and I've been running that every year through to current. And it's a 2-day process. Very sacred, very reverent. It's totally choreographed to music. Angela Dixon put that music together for me. Sometimes people hear it and sometimes they don't, and it's orchestrated that way. And so there's a lot of very vulnerable sharing about people's stories. And as they do that, I know where in their body we need to be making a cast. And I demonstrate how they will cast each other, and then they're led through that process. And then with the dried arrangement at the end, then they make meaning and art of what it is that's come up for them. And what I've increasingly seen over the years is when putting the cast on is a very reverent process, and removing it is even more so. To it doesn't just come off. It needs to be worked off, and it needs to be worked off from within. So it's like a snake shedding its skin. And what's happening then is that so much is being released. The last lady, excuse me, the last lady I worked with, as her cast came off, which was full torso from the chin and ears right down to her pubes, I've never sat by a rhinoceros as it farted. However, I can imagine the amount of air and energy that was expelled when her cast came off was just explosive. And we both looked at each other and just laughed and laughed and laughed at what had just happened.
Wow. You know, I totally understand. I was just, I remember a previous conversation with you where you shared with me if a lady's got breast cancer and is needing to have a mastectomy and she has a cast of her breast made, it's something incredibly precious to keep that cast once the breast is gone from the body. So, yes, it's a very honouring, deeply honouring thing that you do.
It's intimate communion with the human form.
Yes, well, so it's beautiful, isn't it? Absolutely beautiful. So, as an artist, Pat, what is your inspiration? Where do you draw your inspiration from?
It's all come from my encounters with humanity. I have a piece I'll just show you in a second. I met a boy last year, and this is typically how things come to be and how I receive the next lot of art I'm going to do. And at the height of he was about 17, at the height of his emotional and mental turmoil, anguish, he sutured his lips together and he wrote a letter. And when I read the letter, I just so got his pain and his inability to express, and I got the collective pain, and you know that we're seeing all around, and the inability of people to go there, let alone give voice to it. So, you know, one of the things that I say is, you know, I want to be a voice for all that is joyful, and, you know, to open up a place where that level of communication can happen is a big intention. So I have an exhibition planned for next year. I had hoped I'd do it this year, but it hasn't happened, which will be called Mute Appeal.
Mute Appeal.
So this is just a draft of a casting.
Wow.
This will be the central piece. It's just like a practice model, if you like. And it will just be white on white on a canvas roughly the size of the one at the back, perhaps with a thin veil over it. And what I want to do on the opening night exhibition is there'll be 7 pieces, have 7 models who are painted partly into the canvas. And so as the story and the music unfolds, that is the explanation and the voice of each piece, then they will peel themselves away from the canvas. And, you know, I really would like that to be a very big public affair, because it's what people need to hear.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Fantastic. So, Pat, could you share with us one experience from your tour with Patch Adams? Because in a previous conversation, you told me that you had toured with Patch Adams, and I'm sure the viewers would be interested in hearing about an experience.
Yeah. In 2004, I toured with Patch for 16 days through Russia, Moscow and St. Petersburg, visiting orphanages and hospitals, 36 of us in clown persona. And as we arrived at each facility, we all had bubble machines, and we united, only knew one song. It was one musician, and she only knew You Are My Sunshine, so that was our song. So we would arrive at these grey, drab, barren places, just 36 people, beautifully colourful, and bring some joy where there is to be none. And one of the places we visited on the third day was Savient, the Deaf, Dumb and Blind Institute just outside Moscow. And as happened with all of these events, every time we entered a facility, we just allowed things to happen. So as I walked in the front door, a little girl in a blue velvet dress came towards me, and she just took my hand and led me off to a room on the side, pulled me down to be sitting on the floor, and she started playing with my earrings on my left hand ear. And and so I'm just present, and actually was so excited. I just knew something extraordinary was about to happen, and I'm just sitting waiting, sensing that something's coming. And then she started to hum, and I could tell pretty much straight away by the tonal quality of her voice that she was deaf. And so she hummed for a time, and then she stopped. And I thought, okay, my turn, I'll hum. And so I hummed, and she hummed, and she's still holding my earrings. She hummed and I hummed for 45 minutes until they came to call me for the bus. And in that 45 minutes, I had no stray thoughts. There was no thinking, I wonder what vodka will try tonight. Wonder what will happen when I come back to, New Zealand, where I was living then. It was just her and I, and not a single stray thought. And I've never had that length of experience before or since. But it was my most profound encounter with another human being.
Wow, you could call her maybe a wee angelic messenger or something like that to help you find the stillness.
Yes.
How beautiful. What a beautiful, beautiful story.
Mm.
So thank you, Pat. So what are the 5 key recommendations that you would make to people who are hurting right now?
I have a lot, but the ones that I've chosen, number 1, I would get some healing and get it now. Don't wait. Don't let money hold you back. Be a request. There are people out there who will support you, and all you need to do is ask. There is so much happening. You don't have to be concerned about the money, because the way will come, and it may not be a passage or exchange of money. Number 2, if you wish to find peace, then find peace for another. And those others are waiting for you now. They're waiting. Take yourself on an artist date and do one thing every day that is just for you. So that could be a walk on the beach, in the park, have a swing, have a bath, whatever it is. But it's just for you. There's no one else coming on this date. Just you and yourself. One of the biggest things for me has been getting clean with my past. So going back and cleaning up old grievances. So where there are unfinished conversations, things that didn't end, right, or clean if it was left incomplete. Have the courage to go back and open up the conversation and big incompletion around it, which doesn't necessarily have to mean there's conflict. It's about having the courage to step back in there and tidy it up.
Yep. And
then the other thing, and this is all, for me, it's all about being fully self-expressed. If you need to cry, cry. If you need to vent, then give vent. if you need to wail, then wail. When we do this, we free our body of the energy that makes us ill. And, you know, I've had, as you know, an immune joint condition for over 2 years. And, you know, I know at the seat of that is very old, very big pain that I never shared with anybody for 30 years. So it had to go somewhere.
Yeah.
It had to go somewhere. And, you know, we don't need to go that low. You know, if we can be present in this moment and be expressed across the whole emotional range.
Absolutely. And so, Pat, do you run workshops or do events for people?
Yes, I run the grieving program, and we'll be recommencing that next year. I didn't run any this year. At the moment, one of the programs I'm developing is a transformational speaker program. I want to support people like myself who have been through adversity, have survived, they've been on a hero's journey of some kind, and want to move forward expressing more authentically and to speak about what happened and what they've learned and to give their gifts. So I run a range of programs in around that, and I also speak into business on authentic leadership.
Wow. A few areas there. That's wonderful. And all areas that you're expert in as well. So just in finishing off today, Pat, what is your vision and why?
In 2004, I made second intention that by 2020, we would be having an intimacy revolution.
That sounds good.
So we haven't got long.
3 years.
And there have been a lot of signs along the way. The biggest has been a law firm in New Zealand, Kensington Swan, who conducted a 5-year client intimacy program, which I was part of, supporting them to outroll that. And it just, back then, just gave me so much confidence that here's this law firm and excuse me. Look at what.
Just take a moment. Take a moment. Big breath.
Where Pat lives, it's quite humid over there, and lots of water need.
Are you okay, or do you want to go away and get a glass of water?
No, I'm okay.
Good.
I might need to, I'm sorry.
No, please.
Beautiful. You go and get that beautiful drink.
You can see how hot it is there, yes.
And of course all the artwork. Now, viewers, just every now and then you will hear, it's like these whales coming in. And we've only had it a couple of times, but you know, who has not heard a whale noise, it actually sounds like that. I find it very fascinating. She's got this incredible ability, Pat.
She has. Welcome back. How's your throat?
Good, thank you.
Good. So we were just talking about what your vision is and why.
Yeah, so 2020 and intimacy. Oh gosh.
It's okay. Guys, look, I honestly want to say, just while we're waiting for Pat, again, we have having a heat wave. We've known Pat for several years, haven't we, Janine?
We have.
Pat
no, go on. Sorry, Heather.
Pat was the first one to interview me, must be about 4.5 years ago, when I landed in Auckland, and she had this amazing radio station. So she interviewed me there, and I've seen her body cast, all her works, and this woman has some really pretty incredible knowledge, deep knowledge about emotional and deep feeling for all humanity, and that's perfectly fine, Pat.
I'm going to ask you about this later. Just here. It's not the clown chakra.
You know, it's very clever of you, Pat, because each time you go away to get water, we talk about you to the viewers. So very clever of you.
Oh, dear.
So just getting back to your vision.
Yes. For me, 2020 is about, we'll be having an intimacy revolution.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't necessarily mean we'll be getting into bed with each other, but we certainly will be communing and engaging at a deeper level. And I was heartened a few years back to see Kensington Swan, a law firm in New Zealand, the leading law firm, conduct a 5-year program in-house all about client intimacy. And it's like, for goodness sake, really.
Wow, that's great.
So it heralds a whole new way, a whole new unfolding. And then there have been other pockets. I used to say at conferences, I've never met a business yet that has a practice for catching people doing something right until I met a business that did. I can't say that anymore.
No, that's fabulous. Wow, actually, something deep to think about, isn't it? So, in this vision of yours of an intimacy revolution, and that's connecting on far deeper levels and communicating on far deeper levels. How does that look to you?
You know, coming from my space and humour and to be good humoured, I think to be good humoured is about being appropriately responsive or not, and knowing the difference. And that requires an incredible level of listening.
Yes.
And it's not listening to respond, as we often can be in that zone. It's listening and being really present. That enables a high trust environment to evolve. And in a high trust environment, people will engage, develop rapport, banter, and be able to step into that good-humoured space and to have witty repartee. But for me, is like that's like the height of this verbal communication that we can have. It's very clever, where everyone's tapping into their genius, and it's not just laughter, but it's that whole genial thing. I love that word. A genial nature.
Sounds wonderful. Feels wonderful, doesn't it?
Freed up. Yes.
Well, you've given the viewers and myself, I speak for myself, lots to think about. You know, just listening to you has begun the joy bubble about how and it's contagious. Who you are is contagious, and you give permission for people to hook into that joy that we all suppress, don't we? So I love joyology, and we need more of it. Honestly, we all need it, and it needs to go right out into the communities. What you hold with all your years of experience, you have a time bomb in there for 2012. 2020. We passed 2020. Look, again, thank you, Pat, for being here.
Thank you.
And gratitude I am to have you here. And Janine, of course.
Thank you. Thank you, Pat. It's been a wonderful time spent with you today. I thoroughly enjoy. I enjoy your joy. I enjoy you enjoy.
And again, viewers, all her credentials are down below. Such a pleasure to be in your company.
Yeah.
There's a little saying that I remembered yesterday, I think. I love loving lovingly. So they're my parting words.
I love loving. That's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, darling lady.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.